Oh, snap. Well, that that complicates a few things, doesn't it? What do you think about this week's episode of My Hero Academia? Leave me a comment down below and you'll be read out in next week's show. While you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today. It will do them a power of good. And on that note, a big thank you to all our new subscribers, all of you who've been liking the videos, and all of you who've been leaving comments. It truly does me a power of good, and I am eternally grateful for that. Now, on to the review. I know that I shouldn't really be saying this early into review, but I bloody loved that episode. And again, to be fair, I have to be balanced. I have to look at this in a far more nuanced way. I can't really gush upon everything, but wow. That was just a great episode. So, to start off with, we'll start with the positives, as we always do at the header review. And I have to say that the episode was just awesome, thrilling, exciting, almost from start to finish. It was everything that I could have hoped it would be and more, with some really brilliant action sequences, some great character moments and character drama throughout it. I was honestly over the moon to actually see the UA students actually doing something and working together. Their absence throughout this storyline has been a major bugbear for me for quite some time. You'd always see them in the background, you'd always see them just stood there in the forest, not really doing anything, and it was starting to really get annoying for me. But to actually now see them all doing their thing, all punching in and all getting stuff done, it was great. It was really great. I know that not a lot of people were not best pleased with the whole joint training stuff from last season, but I enjoyed that, and just getting a little bit of a more of a taste of that this week was great for me. It was really great, which in turn led to some really interesting moments. Like, I enjoyed the part where Mina was having a flashback when she realises that Gigantomachia is the villain that she met in her pre-UA days. It was this really powerful emotional moment that we've not really seen the likes of for a character like her. And it was fun to see Kirishima having his big heroic turn towards the end of the episode itself. Towards the end of that sequence where he just swoops in, grabs the crystal Pepsi, and then tries to knock out Gigantomachia. It doesn't really work yet, but still it was a great sequence overall. As for the other half of the episode, that is where a lot of the more heavy stuff lie, particularly in terms of the emotional impact of certain things. And of course, due to the simple fact that we know the kind of threat that Tomura poses, and the real risk of him just breaking loose and causing all hell, which looks like it's probably going to be happening next week, so God help them all. It really was just a stunning sequence of events. His monologue, and I know that some people that don't like monologues for the best of times, but just having him explaining, or at least giving a hint as to why he is the way that he is, and how he, for want of a better phrase, confirmed the fact that due to no one helping him when he was at his weakest moment, when he's wandering the streets after accidentally murdering his own family, that is a thing that helped make him the villain that he is today. And just the attitude that some of the pro heroes have to him during the sequence, like Endeavour, it just kind of illustrates what he's trying to put forward. Now granted, for people like Endeavour, they've probably heard speeches like this dozens upon dozens of times throughout their career, so for them this is just another psychopath with delusions of grandeur. But for Tomura, this is his life. This is him bearing his soul, or whatever's left of it, and I really enjoyed that. As painful and maybe as twisted as it was, but to show the nuances of the character, to show why he is the way that he is, and for him to try and communicate that to the world, whilst the world at large, even now, doesn't seem to care, and likely long after all this is faded into memory, people probably won't care all the same as we go into the future for people like him. And also getting the full story, the full scope of the story for All Might's predecessor, who, forgive me, I've forgotten the name of her, and to see how she had to cut herself off from her family just had this painful weight to it. We're seeing a side of superhero life that we really don't see in superhero fiction, full stop. That moment where the hero has to cut ties with their family so they can be the hero. You know, to give a wider pop culture kind of idea here, is that We always know that there's going to be that day where Superman can't go around for Sunday dinner with the Kents. He has to just go off and save the world, and the day will come where he'll never be able to do that. And whilst his family might be supportive of that fact, it will still hurt them, the fact that they won't see old Clark on the farm anymore. And whilst this isn't quite on the same emotional impact of that, it's, again, a thing that we just don't see expressed in superhero culture. Certainly not given the way that modern Western superhero culture is, where we can know their true identities, we can know who they are, and it doesn't seem to have any consequences whatsoever. And on a more pertinent point within this episode, before we get too distracted, that cliffhanger. That was one of the few things that hasn't been spoilt for me, it has to be said. So seeing that happen was just... I honestly, when I was about to flick the bullet, two things came into my mind. One was, alright, so who's going to get hit? And how is he going to impact upon all this? And the second part of me was thinking, what if he missed? I know that he wasn't going to, but there's a part of me in the back of my head was going, wouldn't it be so fucking funny if he missed? Like, if he went to flick it and instead of it shooting forwards, it just shot up. And then it just landed like a foot or so in front of him. And he just like, shit. I don't know, maybe it's just my twisted sense of humour. I just would have got a big kick out of that if he just bungled it. Or that if he actually flicked it at Eraserhead, but it just hit like his belt buckle or something like that, and it didn't get him. Like, wow. Still, with all that said, I think it's only fair that we do get into the negatives, what little that there. My big problem with this week's episode is how we had with Mina. Whilst I enjoyed seeing her, and whilst I enjoyed this emotional moment that we had with her, I do feel that at the end of the day, she probably should have been the one to give the anaesthetic to Gigantomachia. I know that isn't his real name, but I just can't pronounce what his villain name is anyway, but I feel that she should have been the one to do it, and I think that Kirishima doing it, which whilst as epic and awesome and as cool as I was to see, it does take something away from her and her character growth. And it would have been great that had she been the one to, immediately after she's had that flashback, be like, I'm not going to be scared anymore, and just gives this short little speech about how she become a hero and how she has all her friends there to support her. And whilst that might be cliched for some of you out there, it would have been a good moment, and I think that it would have been great for her to get the win. Maybe further down the line, these two will have another confrontation and she will get the win then, but if not, it will feel like a major disappointment for me as far as her character growth is concerned. I also feel that whilst I did enjoy seeing more of Midoriya and Tomura together and the fight of just trying to stop Tomura being a villain, just trying to stop him from committing more destruction, I think that whole stuff should have been its own episode. As whilst it was well written and kept good pace with everything else within the episode, I feel that it's just so big and so important and so crucial that to include it as part of something else like this doesn't really work for me. Now, to be fair, I don't really know how you could have made it work without moving away from the source material and altering it slightly, which I know is a sore point for some people, and I don't want to offend or upset them anymore, and I mean that genuinely so. But I feel that maybe this is just indicative of just the source material and the form that it took. Maybe all this stuff with the students fighting Gigantomachia was its own separate chapter, and then all this stuff with Tomura and Midoriya this week was its own separate edition. So you have just two separate episodes, two separate issues of this manga just put together into one episode, and maybe that's why this is the case. I really don't know. But for me, here and now, I think they should have been their own separate things, because then at very least you could have built upon some of the aspects within it a lot more. But, you know, I can't really complain all honestly, because overall, I feel that this was a damn fine episode. There's no other word for it. It did everything that I could have hoped it would have done, and more. Yes, there's a couple of things here and there that I feel could have been done better, but that's always going to be the case. That's just the way that I'm wired. I will always find a fault in something I really enjoy, because that's just how I've been educated. That's just how my training over the past few years has gone. So don't take it as a slight against the episode, because I just think it was fantastic. And I'm interested to see where they go with it next week. Again, I have not seen the preview for next week's episode. I'm trying to keep this as spoiler-free as I possibly can do, even though I know that there's a major event coming forward in the next few weeks or so, possibly next week or the week after, which will be interesting to talk about, bearing in mind that I've known about it for a while now, but we'll cross that bridge when they come to it. With all that said and done, let us get into Comment Corner! A quick one this week, as we only have one comment, and that comment comes from X1, who says, I enjoyed this week's episode, which, once again, is referring to last week's episode, though I do agree that we probably could have done with more time with Midoriya Tomura, which, thankfully, is what we got this week, and I have to agree, which, you know, coming to think about it, means that I'm agreeing with you, agreeing with me. Wow, some people in the past used to say I have an ego, but wow. Still, I feel that, you know, now was a great time to see more of them, and I was right, we would see more of them. As I've just said, I do think that we need, like, a good episode just dedicated to the two of them going at it, fighting, having emotional, or rather, these interactions between one another, as I feel that that would really help develop the rivalry and the hero-villain relationship between the two of them, because at the end of the day, these two are our main hero and our main villain, and the fact they haven't really shared all that much screen time together in, what, 6 or 7 years at this point, just feels strange to me. Of course, in the context of the show itself and the manga itself, this has all happened over the pace of a few months, so the fact that they haven't spent more time together in that regard makes some sense, but from where we're sitting, it feels odd that we just don't see much of them together. Still, we got more of it this week, and likely we'll see more of it in the next couple of weeks or so. I am interested as to see just how long they can keep this particular arc going, because I will admit it's starting to overstay its welcome slightly. I do feel that that has been mitigated by the fact that he has been just as enjoyable, but still, we gotta go on to the things now. I'm starting to worry that they're dragging stuff out now, but we'll soon see about that. Now, as you may or may not have noticed, YouTube has been starting to allow smaller YouTubers to do community posts now. And last week, I did my first community poll. I probably should have advertised it a little bit more in advance, but still, it was a poll asking you what do you think about last week's episode. 75% of you felt that it was good, 25% you thought it was great. For the record, 4 votes were cast, and for the interest of full editorial transparency, I cannot vote in this poll. So, I know that 4 of you out there had overall generally positive feelings about that. A poll for this week's episode will be posted shortly for those of you who want to share your opinions without going to the full lengths of doing a comment in the comment section down below. With that in mind, I do want to know what you thought, dear listener, about this week's episode. So if you have thoughts and feelings that you'd like to share, leave in the comment section down below. Keep an eye out for the poll. I'm not sure when it'll be coming out, probably shortly after this video is released. With all that said and done, thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!